Hey everybody, it's Bill MacDonald, the Reading and Writing Doctor. I know you're just about to go on spring break, the majority of you at least, but I did promise that I would begin my Dear Doc series where we'd have daily editing, essay, extended, and reading, revising, all the different types of editing, reading, revising, short constructed, extended constructed response questions. So this will be number 2 in our series. On my last video, if you didn't get a chance to see it, it showed a really cool picture, a visual, because some people are visual learners, of a sentence being Dorothy, two sentences being two Dorothys, also known as a run-on, a fragment missing the subject being the scarecrow, a fragment missing the predicate being the Tin Man, a fragment of himself missing his courage, the lion, and Toto, who we changed to Tutu, being that if a sentence is too long, it's a run-on, meaning that there's two Dorothys, two people, two sentences with one stop sign, two streets with one stop sign, or it could be that there's a scarecrow or tin man. Let me show that to you in regular terms first, using the folder that several thousand of you have by now. The EC questions, the EC error change questions, are the ones that are the regular cups that many of you practice a lot with your students. It'll say what error or change. That's considered a Dorothy question. She has it all. She's got a sentence that starts with a capital. She has subject verb agreement called usage. She ends with a punctuation mark and forms a complete sentence. So whenever it asks us that, it means that there's something wrong inside the sentence. And someone mentioned that this seems overwhelming for kids, but what I'm trying to teach you in this drawing is that subject verb agreement usage is probably the most difficult concept to teach your students because of all the things that are involved. And sometimes you have to be able to understand the concept of the things that we need to learn in an entire year inside one little graphic organizer. So just as a quick review, Dorothy is a sentence because she has a subject. We'll call it the brain, the person, place, thing, or idea that's either singular, person, place, thing, idea, or plural, people, places, things, ideas. And she is connected by her neck to her body. And the reason I use the acronym PAVE is a sentence is like a street that we pave with a subject and a predicate, the action, the verb, and then some sort of ending, a period, exclamation, or a question mark. So whenever they ask you the question, what error or what change should be made in sentence blank, it means that sentence blank, whatever the number is, has a problem. And in usage, many times, if you only look at the sentence they're asking you about, the red light, you won't be able to realize that it's an error of singular versus plural that we need to check in the previous sentence, or in the predicate, is it past, present, or future? So this PPF arrow acronym here means, yes, the sentence we're going to look at has a problem, but sometimes unless we check the previous sentence, we won't be able to tell the subject verb agreement issue that we have. So let me go ahead and show you using page 4 of our scaffolded activity. So if this was online, you would see something like this in question 6. It'll say something like, what error, what change, the EC questions, what error, what change should be made in sentence 8. Okay. And even though it says write sentence 8 correctly in the box below, this is for when you want to practice open-ended conventions, which I'll show you in my next video. But I think it's important that we kind of see that it's either going to be in multiple choice format for editing, MC, or it would be in drop down format. And so since I did say some errors, uh, it means that there's going to be more than one. So I'm going to practice showing your students the three errors that I made on purpose on sentence 8 that you would not be able to tell are errors unless you looked at sentence 7. And so that's why Dorothy has her little arrow saying, for usage questions, do not forget to rewind, go backwards to the previous sentence and check the singular versus plural or the past, present, future for the predicate. Okay, so we'll read sentence 8 first because that's the one they're asking us about. Capital, the parents, plural, subject of that sentence, said, past tense, it, singular, was, past tense, the best gift, singular, their kids, plural, had ever received, past tense. It doesn't sound like anything's wrong, but when you actually push the rewind button, we're going to find out some mistakes that are actually there. So we'll go ahead and write it in the same way your students would see in multiple choice and in drop-down format. So it says capital for capital Christmas, and I didn't put a comma here because one of the exceptions for short introductory phrases that just say how or where or when, to start with how, why, where, or when, you often put a comma then. Often means you don't have to if the how, why, where, or when or is short. My brother, capital Dan, purchased, past tense, so it is in past tense, 3 bicycles, plural, for his ownership, neighbors, children. That means when I draw this little vertical wall here in front of neighbors apostrophe, it means that um, they have more than one set of neighbors. Now, we don't know if these neighbors live in different houses or if all these neighbors and their children live in the same house. We just know that it's plural neighbors and the children belong to them. Okay. So when you look at sentence 8, it says, first thing it says, it was the best gift. Well, since 3 bicycles is plural, the first mistake was change it to the parents said it. Since the bicycles are plural, we can say they. So that's me practicing one way that if this was a drop down choice, it would look exactly like that. Okay. That's the first one. Okay. The second multiple choice or drop down, it was the best gift since the gift was bicycles. I can't use gift, so we would have to use the phrase change gift singular to gifts. And once again, your students would see that. And on regular usage, because all of the editing and revising questions are only worth 1 point, your students would only see one of these mistakes. So let's see if we can find anything else. It was said it was the best gift. They were, they was the best gift their kids had ever received. So when I read it correctly, it sounds like there's something else wrong. So I'm going to read it again. My parents said that they was the best gifts. So also because was is for singular and were would be for plural, my second mistake could have been, if I do them in order, um, change was to were. So now when I say all of these correctly, this is number 1. Number 2 is actually going to be was to were, and gifts will be changed to gifts. So let's see how this sounds as a unit. For Christmas, my brother Dan purchased past tense 3 plural bicycles plural for his neighbors plural possessive children plural period. Capital the parents plural subject of the new sentence said they were the best gifts their kids had ever received. And so the cool thing about the way the editing is going to be written for your students, and just so you know, elementary will get 8 questions, middle school will have around 9 when I did the math, and high school is going to have around 11. And there are so many students that miss these kinds of questions because they're only wanting to check the sentence that is being asked about instead of checking the previous sentence. And so any of those things could have been written wrong. And so uh, I do want to show you that if you want to practice usage a little bit more as an isolated skill, checking singular versus plural, past, present, future, in the little mini binder link that I sent you, you can practice it from 174 to 184, and it's open-ended like this. There's a 10 test multiple choice mixed practice that I'll show you. Once I finish UPS, we'll work on some punctuation and some sentence boundary issues with these. And then if you just want to practice usage as a passage, a regular passage, then in that digital 700, almost 700 page binder, you'll go to page 365. So keep in mind that usage, punctuation, and sentence boundary, usage, punctuation, and sentence boundary are the three types of editing questions that do struggle the most. And UPS delivers packages, but based on the results every year, it seems like based on the kids not getting the understanding, if all we do is keep using worksheets, or if we only practice with worksheets and we don't try to make things visual or auditory kinesthetic, they won't realize that this this Dorothy sentence 8 sounded great when it was only read by herself. So it was not until we would read what we might say the Good Witch of the North, the sentence before her, or one of the Munchkins, as long as they're a complete thought. Um, I'm not saying Tin Man or Scarecrow, because we've already established that the Scarecrow is a fragment because he's missing his subject, his brain, and the Tin Man is a fragment because he's missing his his predicate, his heart. So I highly suggest that you teach your students every time that you see a question that involves usage, when it says one of these, they actually have to check the previous sentence on these drop down inline choices. And, just as a reminder, when you look at my advanced folder, the editing will always be number one, regular multiple choice, or number three, inline choices, select your correct answer from a drop-down menu. And those three that I wrote were the ways that your students will see it in terms of editing. Now, I'm not saying that your kids won't get a text entry for editing, which is the way that you saw it in the box, but they would only have to write those phrases, but only one phrase. It would just be, just so you know, it would just be one of those phrases would have to be written uh, inside the box, because text entry says either write uh, for writing purposes a word, a number, a word, a phrase, or a sentence. Okay, typically we won't have sentences. So number would be for math. We won't worry about that. So that's how I would suggest that you practice the first part, the U of UPS. Uh, please, uh, if you're in the CREST or Texas training tour, or I've come to your school, your district, I would suggest you take a look at those usage practice passages. In the back of the binder, there's a whole bunch of full-length mixed passages of editing and revising. Keep in mind that editing passages will always be separate from revising and always be separate from reading passages. Your kids are only going to see two passages of editing, two passages of revising, and from what they've told us, they're going to be short to medium passages, and basically elementary, third, fourth, and fifth are going to probably get 4 questions on one passage, 4 on another. The middle school will get 4 and 5, and the high school will get probably 5 and 6 on each one, because of the way the math works out on how the blueprint is mentioned. So Thanks so much. I hope that you're making great plans for this spring break to rest and relax. I'm going to try my best to keep the videos short and just work on one little skill at a time. Tune in next time when we do the P of UPS, working on punctuation with the concept of understanding sentence boundaries. Take care and God bless.